All right. So today's guest is the founder of the Intuitive Health Coach, a platform dedicated to helping people bring more balance, connection, and wholeness into their daily lives. He's a husband, a father, and someone who has walked a truly transformative journey, overcoming addiction and building a life deeply rooted in mind, body, and soul. He's a man of many talents with a love for life's adventures. It's an honor today to welcome Christian Borja. So, Christian, what's up, my man?
Not too much, brother. Thank you so much for having me on. Just getting the week going. It's Monday, but starting off nice, positive, and starting off with this too. This is super exciting. So thank you again so much for having me on, and excited to talk to you, brother.
Yeah, no, likewise. You came in with a splash in our community, and I was like, man, I gotta talk to that guy. So I figured I kind of been off my game with the podcasting just because I've kind of created too many lanes for myself, or I've been blessed with a lot of lanes recently. So I didn't really know what direction I should take or where I should pour my energy. And then kind of like you just sparked my interest, and I was like, you know what, I gotta get back to it and kind of do this podcasting. So in my head, I thought of an idea to kind of like have like a new member spotlight. And I was like, who
Right
better
on.
than to have Christian on, my man? Um, to get started, I was looking at something you had posted a few days ago, and it was a video, a music video with you in it, and just seeing you there in the back there, just doing your thing, it was inspiring, my man. It was a great quality video, and so just tell me a little bit about what you got going on with the band. You say you're in several bands?
Yeah, man. So yeah, that was a new one of my bands. It's an original band. It's like straightforward rock and roll, Stone Temple Pilots, Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith type of stuff. We've been together and doing that project now for a little over 10 years. We hit the ground running for about 3 years and did tours and did the whole thing and had a lot of fun. But then I became a dad, and I needed to pivot because being chasing the dream of being a rock star and stuff like that didn't fit the vision that I had for myself of being a dad. And I wanted to be there for my partner and everything like that. So had to put the brakes on. And trying to become a rock star and whatnot doesn't necessarily pay the bills. So I had to pivot and figure some things out. So did that, but we got back together about 3, 4 years ago, and we had a bunch of music that we had written in the past, that we wanted to be able to record and be able to hear through speakers. You know what I mean? It's our art. We want to be able to bring it to life. So we decided to get together and record some of the music that we had written in the past, and we had a couple new ideas as well, and we really wanted to do it right though. So we reached out to a couple different producers to help us with this creation, and we found one that we really liked, the stuff that he's done, the people he's worked with, and all of that. So we started working with him, and we started working on it last year, and just about wrapped up. And we just released our first single off of it called "Come Down." Did the whole music video thing and everything like that. But yeah, we're really excited to get that going and see kind of where this takes us. At that point, we were in our early 20s when we first started, so the responsibilities were quite limited in the sense that there wasn't much. I didn't have kids at the time and stuff, so once that kind of happened for me, I told the band, hey, I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do as far as actually have a steady income and provide for my family and be there for support. So I gotta kind of step back a little bit. And it was actually interesting because at that point we took time off, but all the other guys in our band, they all started their careers, and they started bringing in a steady income to pay the bills and support them. I mean, granted, none of them have kids or anything like that, but it was just a very interesting time because we all kind of grew from that pivot point. And even though like I was growing in my own way, it also gave them the opportunity. Our lead singer was just becoming, he realized he wanted to become a tattoo artist. Now he just opened up his own shop it's his own shop. So he found his success in that way. Our other rhythm guitar player, one of my best friends, he got into commercial real estate, and he's doing really well with that. our bass player, he's got an awesome story. He moved here from Indiana, here I'm from San Diego, California, but moved from Indiana, wanted to become a mechanic. Started off at, working at a Honda dealership at the bottom. Now he's the head mechanic at a Porsche dealership in Beverly Hills. And like, it's just like, to for us to be able to take the time off from where we were at and everything like that. And, really all we cared about was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You know what I mean? To see everyone change their lives and pivot from that to come back responsible, focused and really focusing about the music instead of about the after parties. Uh, it's it's uh it's crazy. It's crazy just to see how everyone grew so much, but also come back and the music that we're writing and that we're creating, it just resembles, the maturity that we've all come through, the responsibilities that we've all taken on, and the things that we've accomplished. And it's really coming through the music. And this has been a really awesome time and experience writing this record, especially working with a producer. We've never done that before with this project. So yeah, we're excited. And yeah, that's just one of my projects. I play in a punk band as well. It's an original band, and then I play in a couple different tribute bands and stuff like that. I sing in a 311 tribute band, and then I play guitar in a Alice in Chains and Stone Temple Pilot little mix tribute band as well. So yeah, I do a lot. Sometimes I tend to do too much and whatnot, and trying to balance out, not only time but energy and just the ability to be present. You know what I mean? Where I want to be present, especially as a dad and as a husband. Those are the most important, places for me to be able to make sure that all, the best of my energy, the best of my focus, and just being present with them is the most important thing to me. However, it's the biggest thing that I struggle with. And so, I also I work for a company called Orange Theory. I coach classes and I've been working with them for over 10 years. And then I have my own business and stuff where I do my one-on-one coaching and starting to come out with some courses and want to be able to bring more long form content to the internet, to this platform and whatnot, to just educate and help people be able to understand how their body works and be able to kind of create a little bit of balance within their life between, the go stress of things, but also the recovery and the digest and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I do a lot, but I try to be able to manage it. And it's all stuff that I love, but sometimes I can overwhelm myself for sure. But no, we're get back to the thing. We're excited that we're releasing this new music, this new art. It's really special to us. It's really special to me. I write most of the music for majority of my original projects that I'm a part of. So I love writing. I love the creation process. I just love creating in general and all of that to any space really. Um, and I've found over the years that's kind of like, why we're here.
No,
Purpose, my
definitely.
purpose I've connected to is to create stuff, you know. Um, and
Yeah,
that's
no,
that's
that
what yeah.
it's truly amazing how you're able to balance out not one band, but several bands and a family and a business and a job, you know. Um, Tell us a little bit about that. When we were scheduling out this podcast, you were very upfront and transparent on what your availability will be, and that's honorable. But talk to us a little bit about that. How are you able to fit in all of that and also be a present family person?
Yeah, well, like I said, it's not perfect. But it's one of the main things that I really try to do my best to focus on because, there's nothing else in this reality that I love and cherish more and appreciate than my family. And even though, there's the struggles of it, just being a father and being a husband or just being in relationships in general, there's going to be some turbulence, there's going to be some storms, but at the end of the day, it's taken time for me to get to the point mentally, emotionally, and all that kind of stuff with this, but it's they're the most important thing for me. So with I say trying to balance life out, juggle all these different things that I love to do. And it's a challenge because I'm the type that can get caught up in something, and before I know it, if I'm working on writing a new song, or if I'm working on creating a new post or revamping my website, man, like I can go 10 hours straight and not even realize how long it's been. And so, over the years of doing all this, I've been playing music for now 20 years, and I've been in the health and fitness space for 10 years, and I've been running, and I created my own business about, was it almost 6 years ago. So it's, I've had time to really, fuck up in a sense. But for me, I'm a very big person of like, let's reflect and learn and continue to try and continue to try and continue to try. But obviously learning from each thing that didn't work out and trying something new. And with that, I've been able to figure out what works for me as far as, taking care of myself, obviously as a coach and a professional in the health space, taking care of my body, my mind, everything is number one. Because if I'm not taking care of myself, then I'm not going to be able to show up for my wife and my kids in the sense that I want to, you know. For me, kind of the role that I really try to embody and try to be there is obviously to provide, you know what I mean? Make sure the bills are paid, there's food, the best food that I can get for them, the healthiest, organic, nothing with poisons and stuff like that. And make sure that we have everything to at least, be comfortable and safe, you know what I mean? All of that kind of stuff. So that's, the first thing as far as being there for my family, is making sure everything is provided, you know what I mean? But then also being there emotionally, having the capacity to listen to my wife when she needs to vent and talk to me about things, and also remember the things that she wants me to do, and you know what I mean? And the things that she has planned out for the week, and birthday parties, and going to, these people's house, and going to the in-laws, this just, baseball, and there's a lot on the schedule. So, there's a lot of times where I've forgotten a lot of things, and she was not happy. I'm like, crap. Okay, I gotta really try to be able to make sure that these things for me are prioritized first, because I want to be able to show up and I want to support them in the best way possible. So when I look at everything that I'm juggling and I've got my hands in and everything like that, and everything that I love to do, first is making sure that my health is taken care of, and then next is making sure that I am present, I'm aware, I'm listening to my family, my wife and my kids. And the other thing, too, is very real with a partner, is a happy home. The wife's happy, then everyone else is happy. And so, and it's making sure that they're happy in a positive way, that they're supported, that they're being listened to, that they're heard, you know what I mean, and that they feel loved, you know what I mean. That's what me and my wife's relationship, that she's really communicated to me, that that's truly what she needs. She doesn't need the material things, she doesn't need this. It's just, show up, be present for me, listen to me when I'm talking to you, and try to remember the things that I say, because if you remember, then I know that you are listening, and I know that you care. And she's right, and it's taken time for me to be able to set the ego aside and really focus in on making sure that that's a priority. It's hard to juggle the work and be able to understand that. 'Cause a lot of times, if I'm not quite listening, or I don't remember something, usually it's because I was working on doing some type of work, either, creating content or working on some aspect of my business or whatnot. And she says that I can have tunnel vision, where it's like, my focus is 100% of the thing that I'm doing. So everything else around me is a little bit of a blur. It's kind of there, but my focus is on the one thing that I'm trying to do. So I try to be able to make sure that we either have scheduled time to be present, where I block time out where I'm not going to be working, I'm not going to be on my phone, I'm going to be outside with my kids, we're going to go to the park, or I'm going to have some time where me and my wife are going to be able to sit down, and she's going to express whatever she wants to express, tell me how her day is going, anything that she needs support in, and that stuff. Or maybe we just sit there and we just talk about how much we appreciate and love each other, and how fun this thing was that we did last week or whatever it may be. But we try to be able to have that scheduled time to communicate and just block out to make sure that we're on the same page with everything. Um, and yeah, because she works pretty much full time as well. So it's hard if we don't have that scheduled time, then we don't communicate, and then that's when things start to kind of to fall apart and stress and tension starts to build, and then we gotta recircle back and get back on track and whatnot. But it's for me, it's I read a book, one of the only books that I've read. I'm not a big reader. That's one thing that I really resonated with Waters is he was the first person who's like, I hate reading. I don't read any books, and then like read two books in my life. I was like, oh my God, finally, someone doesn't like reading as much as me. But I did read this one book, and it was Taking Ownership by a guy named Jocko. He was a Navy SEAL. You may have heard him or seen him on and whatnot, but I really enjoy the the work that he puts out. I've been lucky enough to see him at a conference working for Orange Theory. He was one of the guest speakers at our conference, so I got to see him live, which was really cool. But the book that he wrote was about his experience in the Navy SEALs and some of the things that he had to live through. But more so, it was him as a leader and expressing the trials and tribulations and the challenges that he went through, and more so being able to bring the vulnerability aspect as a leader to, show the people that you're leading that you're not perfect, you're going to mess up, you're struggling with things just like they are, but along the way, he found these different things that really helped him take ownership, take responsibility of things, but then also manage and prioritize and regroup to, get what needs to be done. And whether that is, something as intense as a Navy SEAL mission, or if that's just something like just making sure that we're creating and keeping the right energy and the right love within your home. You know what I mean? Both are extremely challenging, and everyone's going to go through those experiences different, but the formula is the same that I found, and I could apply what these guys were, applying to make sure that they don't get killed, that they leave what they're doing with their life and they can go back home to either their loved ones or just back to what they like to do. And, if they can do that and get through that, then we can do this at home, or we can do this with the business, or we can do this, with whatever. And, I've been able to kind of use that formula that I learned from that and apply it to just about everything that I do in my life. And it's helped out so much. And it's just really prioritizing what's the most important thing, truthfully to you. And let's write it all down, be able to zoom out and see how we're going to be able to manage this, right? We all only have 24 hours in the day. So how are we going to use those 24 hours to reflect what is most important to you? Um, and through that process has been how I've been able to block out time and prioritize it to what's most important to me. And sometimes I've got to say no, I can't do this. And yeah, it's hard, but at the same time, I got to remind myself, like, hey, we're choosing what we want to do, and these are the most important things that we chose to do. So, I know we want to do all these things, but it's okay that we're not going to get to everything, or it's okay, what, to say, hey, I've got to take a little bit of a rest because I can feel that my body needs it instead of pushing, pushing, pushing. So yeah, man, that's kind of my story, my flow of being able to manage everything that I got going on. And but it's taken a lot of time to be able to get to this, a lot of trial and error, and just continuing to reflect and coming back to, what's truly important to me.
No, I can definitely resonate with that. Something very impactful that you said was how you kind of just regroup with your wife and your family. Because a person that is as busy as you'd like to be, sometimes you just need to kind of check out and check in with everyone, because you are the pilot, and it's important to kind of see where you need to be of service to them. And so I can honor that. It took me a while to find what I love to do. I was kind of like the 9 to 5er, in my early years, I was blessed with landing a corporate job, and in a way, that just provided me with that security, and I was kind of like in that I was tapped in like to the everyday 9 to 5 matrix, you can say. It was very comfortable. So I wasn't really able to tap into who, my art, who I am here to be, and what I have to offer, and also discover myself, like the talents that I have. I didn't make time for that because life was too comfortable. And so I never really had to go through those challenges as being a family man because I knew my schedule. Monday through Friday, I had to work. After that, let's watch some Netflix. And on the weekends, hopefully we got time to do something. But now that I find myself tapping more into myself, and finding these passions that I'm just like, whoa, I didn't even know that I had a passion for this. I get lost in it. And because it's such a sudden shift in my reality, like I felt that in the beginning, at least, I started giving a little too much attention to what I had going on that didn't include my family. I just started now really prioritizing the importance of my time and setting up schedules with my wife and I, kind of like how you have. You said to me that you were on daddy duty, and so that's what I'm starting to tap into now with my wife because she's also starting her own business, and so we're kind of just finding time where, okay, we're gonna set aside time for family, for ourselves, and for our businesses. Man, either way, let's go ahead and proceed, my man. I apologize about that. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. It's like
Yeah, no worries, brother. You're all good. I'm so used to technical difficulties, especially as a musician too. In all my bands, everyone's always worried about all of my stuff because I've always had technical difficulties with everything. So it's all good. It's what happens. But yeah, no, so it's I think that that's great, especially if she's starting up a business as well and stuff. It's I find the biggest thing that really keeps our relationship strong is just making sure that I'm doing what I can so that she feels supported. We go to the farmer's market every Sunday, and every Sunday I make sure that we get her flowers. You know what I mean? If she doesn't come with me, I pick them out myself and I bring them home for her. If she's there, she picks them out, herself and whatnot. But, just finding the little things that I know that she loves, um, and making sure, that I try to be able to show her some of those things. I'm not sure if you've ever uh, looked at the or heard of the book called The Five Languages of Love.
I've heard of it, yes.
Yeah, so we read that book, and so like we read it together and really tried to be able to understand, each other's love language, because I've found, myself feeling like I do all these different things for my wife in a sense. However, though, they don't really mean much to her. It's not the things that she really needed or the things that really make her feel the way that I want her to feel, and a little bit vice versa. You know what I mean? And a lot of times we can get into the sense of like trying to give others what we need, but we don't really totally know what it is that they actually truly need. And sometimes we might not even be able to understand. Like I know I didn't understand that, like, really, like if I do the laundry, like that means like a lot to you. Like, you know what I mean? Like it, like more than like me buying you something else. And she's like, yeah, or like me being it, like it was just different things that meant more to her than something else that I was doing, where I was putting all this energy into doing these other things because I thought that they were, things that made her feel happy, feel loved and supported. What really, like, those were actually things that affected me in those ways when she's completely different, and so it wasn't until we went through that book and we really focused in on like having that communication, and honestly it was a lot more vulnerability of, me coming to her and saying like, hey, look, like, obviously I know that, like, I can see and I can feel your energy. How can I improve? I love you, and I know that I'm not like making the mark in a sense. You know what I mean? As far as like where how you want to feel supported and what you need. I'm willing to change, I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to pivot. So, but I know that like if we don't have those communications and we're not present, you know, then usually the relationship's not going to work. And trust me, there's been a lot of times where she's said things, she's told me how she feels, she said these things, but I wasn't present. So I wasn't hearing her, I wasn't retaining the information, and I was just continuing to go down the consistent path that I was going down, only to like pretty much continue to bang my head on the wall because I wasn't getting, the results that I was expecting to be able to get. Um, and then, yeah, we finally, were able to talk, and we looked at trying to be able to work these different, communication things out and understand each other better. And we came across that book, and it helped out a lot. There's still things that, we never get it right. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. And I think that's one of the actual beautiful things in life. But we're always continuing to learn. Things are always changing, but having the prioritized time to be able to communicate, see where we each other are at, and then talk about how we need support in any areas. You know what I mean? Sometimes we're like, hey, everything's good. Like, just keep doing what you're doing. I love you. You're amazing, and it's all good. But sometimes life happens, and things like my wife recently, she injured her shoulder at work. She's a vet tech, and she was trying to hold a like 100 and something pound pit bull, a big one, and it jerked back and rolled and hit her right in like the clavicle shoulder area and strained something, and she couldn't pick anything up, and she was in a lot of pain, sleeping and doing everything. So it was like, that's something that you're not quite prepared for. And so I had to be able to pivot to make sure that I could be there to support her. You know what I mean? Make sure I have the kids so that she can go, see the doctor or do this, or she can just rest and sleep and do all that. So, but if I didn't communicate with her and I was like, well, I got all this work, I don't really know what to do, that's that's not supporting her. That's not truly caring. And when I have the abilities to be able to manage my day and shift things around so that I can show up and support her, you know what I mean, is the important thing. So it's just like, things are always going to happen, but to have different protocols or different, habits in place to be able to make sure that we're always, on the same page and connecting and being present is going to be able to help, you know, all of those different obstacles and storms that may come. And that's for anything, you know what I mean? We have relationships with everything. So it's like you can really apply that to any relationship in your life. Through my coaching, I talk about the different types of relationships. There's obviously the relationships with like your partner and friends and family and like people or like your animals. But then we also have relationship with places like your work or your actual physical home, or your car. And we have relationships with other things like, a phone or food. And, all of these different things is an actual relationship. And so it's like, and when I'm trying to be able to help people with their health and get in shape or lose weight or manage stress, it's like, okay, well, let's see everything that you got going on in your life, and what are your relationships with this? How is this fitting within your life, and how is this truly serving you based off of the life that you truly want and the life that we are putting in to work on creating for yourself? You know what I mean? And that's some of the most powerful work to be able to really make sure, but you got to stay accountable on yourself. You got to make the changes, you got to set the time, and you actually got to do what you're doing, you know what I mean? But that's, I feel like has always been the first step to truly embodying the person that you want to be, as well as creating the life that you want to create.
Yeah, I can certainly agree with that. I mean, the thing that really, sticks out to me is how you're trying to be, present with your wife and considerate to her, providing her support, not with something tangible to the hands, but tangible to her heart, and that kind of reflects back who you are as a person now, because you can't love your wife if you don't love yourself, so just the way that you approach your relationship with your wife really reflects back to who you are as a person. I'm really interested in actually knowing how you got to this point. I guess I did a little research into your business card and see what you're about. And I kind of wonder, how the intuitive health coach came to be.
So if you don't mind, if you can take me back to the day when you were on your knees and you knew you needed change and take it from there.
Absolutely. My story is the biggest part of my coaching, of my, everything that I put out into the world, and just really try to be able to provide support for the areas that I had to struggle through, the areas that I experienced, and the areas that I was able to find the strength and the understanding to be able to get myself out of it. So, I struggled with a drug addiction for about 10 years of my life. I started off early, as I was an angry, early teen. My parents started fighting, and they ended up getting a divorce when I was about like 12, 13 years old. My dad is an entrepreneur as well, and he was caught up in some stuff right around, the 2006 to 2008 whole financial crisis deal, and bad business deal, and we lost everything. Parents got into a divorce of the outcome. My parents lost our house in the outcome. So that, you know made me really angry. I didn't understand, what was going on. My parents were just constantly fighting and arguing, every day, all the time, about everything. And for me, I was always just trying to, I was always outside of the house, trying to escape their their arguing, their fighting, their energy, and all of that kind of stuff. And then luckily, I found music at an earlier age, and loved music, and music was kind of a place that like allowed me to escape. If I couldn't go outside, I could put the headphones on and pop on the CD player, the cassette player, you know what I mean, and with my Walkman, and escape. And then I wanted to be able to play music. I loved it so much, and I started getting into some punk music and some rock and roll, and like, it just looked so cool and badass, and I wanted to play some instrument, and I begged and begged my parents, and they said no, no, no. And then finally my grandma got me a guitar, a starter pack guitar, when I was 12 for my sixth grade graduation. And so I had that for like the last year of my parents, deal before they got divorced. And I just cranked my amp up. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I would pop in an AC/DC or Van Halen or Scorpions into, CD, into my CD player, and blast it and crank my amp up, and just run around my room, and pretend I was on stage playing in one of these bands. And but it was an escape for me. But then, as I went into middle school and all of that, as an angry kid, that's I was going to a public school, and that's when I one of my friends that I ended up becoming in a band with, the drummer, he was like, hey, you wanna just drink some of my dad's alcohol and go down to the football game down at the high school. We were in eighth grade at that point, and was like, sure. But I went to my first party, and I saw kids drinking beers, and for me it was a interesting experience, because I went to a private Christian school, for ever since preschool into about the time my parents ended up getting a divorce, which was like right in middle school. And that, like, going there was extremely sheltered, just like this bubble of just like, everything's happy, almost like, I don't know if you've seen the Lego movie, but like, everything is awesome, like that whole deal. Like, that's kind of like how that was. I didn't realize it, but like, everything was just like, everyone was so happy, everything was so good, and you only like heard about these bad things and sin and all that kind of stuff. But then as soon as I started going to a public school, the first party, boy girl party that I went to, that was one of my mom's friend's daughter's party, there were kids that had beers there, and I was so confused at that point. And this was when I first started going to that school. Um, and I was like, are these what are, like, I asked him, I was like, hey, why are you drinking beer, and you're like 13 years old, like, are you angry at your parents? And like I started having questions of like things that like I could possibly relate to, you know what I mean? And they didn't really give me an answer, and I was like, okay. And to me, I just started trying to fit into a new school too, with these new people. I kind of just started to just go with the flow of like, okay, well, this is what everyone's doing, so I'm gonna do that. So that's kind of how drinking started for me. And then as that prolonged, and started getting into high school, started getting into girls and was playing in a band and all of these different things. So did, all the drugs and everything like that. And I was going to a school in a very, very nice neighborhood, one of the most wealthy neighborhoods in San Diego. And so, it was deemed like everyone would think that, this public school is one of the best schools to go to. It was very nice. They had lots of funding and stuff from the community. It was a very nice looking school for the most part. They had some cool opportunities as far as electives and stuff like that, for a public school, and their test scores looked good. But what I realized is that they, the way that they lived life, they had money, all the money, in the world, and they used that money, to be able to buy drugs, lots of it. And sometimes even the parents, if the parents were there, sometimes even the parents even supported it. But a lot of times the parents weren't there and whatnot. So, it was a very interesting dynamic for, as I look back, at, because at this point I was, my parents had divorced. I was living in a 1 bedroom apartment with my mom and my sister. Didn't have a good relationship with my dad at that time. I was very angry at the whole, situation of my parents getting divorced, us losing our house, having to like get rid of all of my things, to now living, with my mom and my sister, and not even having a space for myself. I slept on the couch in our living room. And so like, and especially being a teenager and going to high school and not having like any private space at that point in my life was very challenging. And so, I saw that the cool thing to do was to, get into drugs. And once I started drinking and once I started getting into drugs, like it was a new escape for me, and so that's where that all, started. And it was all just about the partying. Like I said, I was playing in a band and we were doing great. Like we actually played a lot of places. We ended up getting gigs to play in bars. We weren't allowed to hang out. They would sit outside and then they would usher us in. We'd hit the stage and play, and then they would say, "All right, guys, see ya," and we'd get out. But we started, we recorded our first album and did all that in high school, and we won like 2 different battle of the bands, and so like it was really fun. However, though, I wasn't. I was doing tons of drugs and just focused in on all the girls and everything like that. So it wasn't. It was a great experience, and I'm happy that I did that at an earlier age rather than like once I got into, once you're in your so-called college years or whatnot. But it just continued to, spiral. I had to have a job, obviously, to be able to support myself and whatnot. So I had a job at an early age of like 14. I got a job at this taco shop, as a cashier, and I just always had a job. You know what I mean? Especially to be able to keep up with everything that all of these other kids had. You know what I mean? Clothes. I'm a big surfer, so surfing, and then just music equipment and stuff. If I wanted anything, I had to do it because my mom was just barely, paying the rent and getting by with what we, needed as far as food and all that kind of stuff. My dad was struggling. He was living with his sister, so like, he was just barely getting by as well. So, at that point, if I wanted anything, I had to go make the money to be able to have it. So I got a job and I worked and, did that whole thing. And so hold on real quick. All right, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I got heavily into that, and then one thing, I was probably it was right when I was getting a car. I wanted to get a car. I turned 16. I had my permit, like right when I could get my permit. Like for me, like to have a car meant I had a private space. Like, you know what I mean? Like from where I was living with my mom and my sister, just, in the living room, like having a car for me was like really freedom. Like I could drive myself to wherever I wanted to. I could hang out in my car if I wanted to alone with no, like, you know what I mean? All these different things. I go surfing whenever I wanted to. I don't have to ride my bike or walk or all these things. So having a car was was really important to me. And luckily, my grandma had a car, and she was like, "I'm going to save this car for you." It was a 1998 Ford Explorer, and had like 150,000 miles on it. But she took really good care of it and everything, so it worked. But and she was like, "But I need you to pay me $2,500." And so I was like, why can't you just give it to me? You're not even using it. You have two other cars. Why do you need me to pay? And she's like, it's the principle. You don't appreciate things that are just handed to you. And at the time, I didn't get it, especially with how angry and frustrated I was seeing, these 16-year-old kids get brand new Mercedes and BMWs and souped up trucks and all this. And like, I was like, I gotta go work my ass off every day after school to be able to save up this money to be able to buy my grandma's, car. But I did it. But then, as I was partying and doing all this stuff, I started putting two and two together of how much money all these kids were spending on these party favors. And I was like, I ended up meeting someone at a job that had a connection for me to be able to get a big quantity at a very, very, very good price. And he was just like, just flip this. You sell it for how much they're buying it for, and you keep all the money. And I was like, really? And so that's when I started getting really deep into not only my own drug abuse, but then selling and stuff like that too in different aspects. And it was mainly just marijuana at that point. But then as things progressed, it progressed into all kinds of other things. But that was now my life. My didn't like We kind of got into some things with my band, and that didn't happen as much. And I got a girlfriend, and I was just super focused on that, and all she wanted to do was party and stuff. And that was kind of, as I look back, all the things that I ended up trying for the first time were all influenced for the most part by my girlfriends. And it's like, so gotta gotta watch out for that. One thing that I really realized is learning, to live for you and not changing you to be liked by someone else, right? So I know that Waters has talked a lot about that, and it's something that I really didn't grasp on till later. But as I reflected, a lot of the different things that I did and that continued to snowball into worse things were to be able to fit in, to be liked, to try to be popular and be cool. And I don't even talk to any of those people anymore at all. And it's just so crazy of, now having a son. I have an 11-year-old and a 4-year-old, and watching him go to school and hearing him every single day, telling me how his day went and how different, things are, when they go to recess and they do this, and popular kids and not popular kids, and just all of this stuff. And it just like, I remember how much that all meant to me too. And I look back, and it's just like, I can also remember my dad laughing at me when I would tell him all these different things. He's like, you just wait, like none of these things are going to matter. Just stay true to you, do what you like to do, what you love to do. You know what I mean? And it's so true. But that's trying to be the cool kid and trying to, fit in and everything really, really led me down to that path. And so I did that. It was about 10 years until that time. I got to the time where I was on my knees and I was like, I can't do this anymore. At this point, I was 19, 20 years old, 21. I was living on my own. I got my own place at 17. I got my car, got my car, and had that for a year. And since I was working and I started making all this money, I was able to get my own place, not my own place, but my own room, and be a roommate at 17. And so, because that was something that I just wanted my own. I wanted a bed, I wanted my own space, my own closet, and all of that shit. So I worked my ass off to be able to get it. And I got that. And then once I got out there, I started getting into growing marijuana, because in San Diego, it was becoming, recreation, or not recreation, but medical. All the dispensaries were opening up, and it was moving towards the path of, being recreational and all that kind of stuff. So I really was like, oh, like this is a way for me to be legit and, have fun with it. I really enjoy growing things. And so, I went with that. And I did really, really, really good with it. And I did so good that it messed other people's business up. And so that's where started getting into some trouble with the other people that not only supply the streets, that were also supplying the dispensaries at the time and stuff like that. And so some word got out, and there was a couple other of my friends that were growing as well at their own places and had their own operation and stuff. But a couple times, some people tried to break in and tried to jump me and different stuff like that. But the last time is I had three guys break into my house about 4:30 in the morning and wake us up. Me and my wife now at the time, she was my girlfriend at the time, but wake us up with ski masks and guns, and they were like, "Where's all your shit at? Give us all your fucking shit," you know. And for me, obviously, I thought it was a bad dream. I didn't really know what was going on, and then I realized that it was real. Because I got smacked in the face with a gun, and I was like, "Okay, this is not a dream. This is fucking real. What am I going to do?" And a a switch flicked and I saw red and I went into survival mode. I was with a roommate at the time, and like I said, my girlfriend, my wife now, my girlfriend at the time was there with me, and I was like, this, I'm gonna fight. And so, two of the guys ended up leaving, and there was just one left, and me and him got into it, and he ended up dying. Um, he got out of our house and ended up falling and dying on the corner of our block. And but at that point, once we got him out of the house, the crazy thing too is his ski mask came off and realized it was someone I thought was my friend. Um,
Wow.
yeah, I went to high school with him. He was older than me. He taught me how to lathe in wood shop that we had. I hung out with him at the beach all the time. We surfed quite often. And not only that, he was my wife's first boyfriend in in first grade elementary school, and the first person that she ever kissed. Um, and it was like insane to see his mask come off and to see his face, but to know that he most likely wasn't going to make it. And at that point, I came to and realized that I was covered in blood, his blood. And I fell to my knees and I I blacked out. I don't really know what happened. The next thing I realized I was at my sink and trying to be able to wash off my hands because all I could smell were like thousands of pennies. Blood smells like that, like copper, and I was gonna throw up. And I was trying to be able to get it off of me, and I was just like, I need a fucking cigarette, and I was smoking like as many cigarette, like just doing that, and didn't know what to do, and looking out my window, and next thing, my whole block is surrounded with cops, and I'm like, oh fuck, what am I gonna do? And my girlfriend, her mom lives lived up the like a couple of blocks from where we were, and she ended up, I guess, leaving. I didn't even realize where she went. She left and she went home and to talk to her mom. And they ended up coming down, and then they called me and were like, hey Christian, we're outside, Victoria's okay, but you need to come out. And I was like, okay. And I could see there was probably like 20 cops with their guns pointed at my door. And so I was like, okay. And all I could really think of is that like these guys are gonna shoot me right now. Like, especially from the life of like the streets and everything that I was doing. I didn't like cops at that point in my life very much. My uncle was also a cop, and I did not have a good relationship with him. So I didn't like him, and I was fucking scared as shit that I was gonna die, that they were gonna shoot me, especially with things that we've seen before. And so I came out with my hands on my head. I was in my boxers, my underwear, and still pretty much covered in blood. shaking, just begging, please don't shoot, please don't shoot, please don't shoot. And they got a hold of me and they threw me to the ground and they handcuffed me and then they put me in a car. And then it was about, they drove me downtown to their headquarters and I had to go through the whole system and everything. And then they brought me into a room and then I was interrogated for who knows how long. But, and I went through a polygraph test. Supposedly these guys, they've been doing a lot of other things as well. They had been robbing dispensaries. They had been breaking into other growers. And so it was a lot bigger of a deal than I kind of realized. However, like I didn't know that. So the level of intensity, that they were kind of coming at me and the things that they were bringing up, I was super confused and I was getting even more scared that like, what now? I'm like, I'm gonna am I going to jail for the rest of my life? Like, what is happening here? And because they were saying all kinds of stuff, that I was like, no, that didn't happen, and I don't know that person, and I don't know, like, you know what I mean? And then I'm like, look, like, I'll take a fucking polygraph test. I don't know, obviously I was in extreme like panic and anxiety and my mind wasn't quite working right. And as I reflected back and I watch, I love investigation shows and all of those different things, I realized that like that's just how they do things, but I wasn't clicking when I was in the moment there. But eventually I think it was like 5 or 6 o'clock. My dad had sent a message to me saying, hey, I contacted a lawyer, he's coming to get you and you're coming home. And I remember my dad was with the lawyer, and that was the first time I talked to my dad in like 5, 6 years or so. First time I had seen him in just about that time too. And I had remembered that like I was so grateful. Like even though like I was so angry with him, I was just like I was so grateful. I was crying. I was so grateful that to see him and that he showed up for me. Like, and honestly, me and my dad had a big drug deal past in the 80s and everything like that. And then he ended up finding Christianity and that kind of saved him. And that's kind of been his main thing ever since. And so once I kind of got into that, he would always tell my mom that like, oh, he doesn't want to talk to me because he's sinning and he's doing drugs and he's having sex and he's doing all of this. Like, I know he's playing all these shows and doing all this stuff. And so like I always felt attacked by him, even though like, yeah, it was true. It was always just like this negative thing on how I'm doing everything wrong. And I was like, fuck you, dude. Like, I don't have to listen to you. I don't have to talk to you. I don't have to do anything anymore. And that's kind of where I was at. And I was like, and in fact, I'm going to go even harder on all this stuff. I'm going to continue to party and do everything that I can because I know it pisses you off. And so that's kind of how it all was, up till that point. And at that point when I saw him and I was being released from a place that like I didn't even know if this was like my life now, I was going to be in jail forever, or what I was going to do. But but I got out and I was just so fucking grateful, and I was really truly so happy to see him because I felt like a little kid again, and that my dad just came and saved me. And from that, it was a pivotal point for me to be able to look at rebuilding my relationship with him. The fact that I have a dad, yeah, I feel attacked and I feel that like I'm not good enough, and I feel like all of these different emotions that I want to run away from with him. However, though, like I still have a dad. I know a lot of people that don't have a dad, or their dad passed away, or all these different things. So like, my mindset really started to shift on like so many different levels from that point. And I also knew, that I I just got my one chance, where I went from having guns pointed at my face to like any of these dudes could shoot me right now and I'd be dead, to walking outside to having all these cops with their guns at me and any one of them can freak out and pull the trigger, to now fully being going through the system and, all of the stuff, being in this white jumpsuit in a glass cell all by myself, hands chained to the bench and feet chained to the ground. Like, is this going to be my life? You know what I mean? So, like, and the one thing that older people had told me that were into that kind of stuff, they're like, hey, you got to be careful because you only end up in jail or you end up dead. If you make it out, like that's a 1% deal. But, and so I was there and I was like, yeah, I'm done. Like, this is my last, this is it. This is my one get out of jail free restart. Like, this is my one fucking chance to like turn my life around and actually do something. And that was it. I realized that like I couldn't go back to my life. I couldn't go back to the same house. I couldn't even stay in the same town. I knew that I needed to get the fuck out. And so luckily I have grandparents that live up in the mountains, here in San Diego. And my grandma was there by herself as my grandpa was over in Afghanistan at the time as a military contractor, helping build the bases and everything over there in Afghanistan. And so I was like, okay, I'll go to my grandma's house. She needs help. They have about 12 acres out in the mountains, and she needs help to just be able to maintain things and, go to the grocery store, all these things. Like, she could use my help. So I'll go out there. And so I stayed out there for about 6 months. Didn't really talk to anyone. I didn't really have any phone. The only person that I was really talking to was the investigator from the case. Because, like I said, there was a lot more that like kind of went in with them. And then there was also like backlash from the people that he was affiliated with, my mom and my little sister and some of my friends, with getting threats. So I was trying to be able to make sure that, like, obviously my family was protected and safe and stay up to date with that, but also letting them know about, the things I was hearing from my friends. A couple of my friends got jumped because, they were friends with me, and just different things happened. So I stayed in communication with her. Me and my girlfriend took some time off of talking and whatnot, but I just really just focused on me. And first off, just like getting off the drugs and everything that I was using, and focusing in on allowing my mind to just kind of like work through some of the stuff that I just went through. And then just talk with my grandma. I was so fortunate to have her. And she was probably one of the people that understood me the most. We're both born in May. We're both Tauruses and whatnot. And yeah, she definitely understood me the most and gave me like the best advice throughout my life that like really resonated with me. And whatnot, because I guess we're both very stubborn in senses and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so it was great to be able to spend time with her. She put me to work, as well as I was able to find work with other neighbors of hers and stuff that needed some, work on their property and their land and stuff like that. So I was able to make some money, and I wasn't having to spend it because she, fed me. And she had a pretty big house. So I was, I didn't have to spend any money. So I was able to save it and whatnot. But I really focused on, I weighed like 120, 130. So I wanted to gain weight, and I wanted to, look normal, and I wanted to start exercising, and I just really wanted to take care of myself, through that, this rehabilitation process that I was putting myself through. I didn't get to go to a rehab or anything like that. I went to my grandma's house in the mountains. I was there for about 6 months. And then I went to my grandpa's house. My grandpa and my uncle, who was the police officer, they lived in Arizona. And so I went out there for about 3 months. And I focused in on trying to build my relationship up with my uncle. Because again, one thing that I really reflected on from leaving, jail and seeing my dad and that whole experience is that, you know, I need to look at all of the people that I do have in my life, and I need to try to be able to make something out of it because I'm fortunate enough to have uncles and grandparents and a dad and a mom. And even though, like, yeah, we've had our differences in different things, you know, I've seen people that don't have those things, and I've listened to how they feel without having that in their life, or having, you know, those people available to talk to or spend time with or to love. And, you know, I just wanted to really embody the gratitude for life that I had going through the experience and the people that I really do have in my life, and to let go of all of the pain and the ego and the, you know, sense of like rebellious, you know, nature that I have, um, and give these relationships a second chance, and but coming in with a different mindset, right? Coming in with a mindset of being open and really just fostering a relationship. However, though, at this point too, like, I wasn't dealing with shame or judgment, knowing that like my dad didn't like, you know, obviously didn't want me doing drugs and, you know, sleeping around with girls and all of these things. And, you know, obviously my uncle being a police officer, and, you know, he was a DUI, you know, sergeant. And so it's like, you know, I also didn't have a good relationship, and also was like, fuck you, because I was also covering up my own shame and whatnot, because I knew the lifestyle that I was living and the choices that I was making and the people that I was hanging out with wasn't good, wasn't good. Um, and, you know, I really didn't feel happy. I was always chasing something, you know what I mean? And I got addicted to that chase. And once it wasn't there anymore, I was able to really reflect on like what was important to me and the different feelings that I had and kind of where those stemmed from. Later on, you know, once after about that 9 months of just being alone and spending time with my family, and working on some of those different things with people that I didn't really spend much time with, um, I started focusing in, you know, on coming back, but being able to relay the foundation of everything. I was like, okay, well, what do I want to do, you know, for work and stuff like that? And I wanted to, you know, I was looking at the military, being able to join the military. I was looking at the Coast Guards because I could, you know, stay near water, as I loved water. I grew up surfing my whole life. I did junior lifeguards and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm very comfortable in any condition in the ocean. So I was like, I'd love to be a rescue swimmer. I think that would be super cool, be able to travel, jump out of helicopters, save people in the water. Like, fuck yeah, that sounds awesome. And I was like, I also want a backup plan. And the backup plan for me was to be a drug interdictor at this point. I'd also had a lot of friends that, you know, overdosed and died due to heroin, and Oxycontins were coming in at that point. And so I wanted to be able to do something to prevent these things. I wanted to be able to do something to prevent, you know, the guy that, you know, died from trying to break in on me, the kid that I knew that was a mentor for me in high school, and my, you know, now wife's first boyfriend. Like, he was in it because he was addicted to heroin, and he was working for these people and doing the different things that he was doing to be able to keep that chase. And if I could do something to be able to help prevent a little bit, if I could do something and it saved one person's life, like, that meant something very, very big for me. And so, like, being able to become a drug, you know, interdictor, you know what I mean, going down to South America, like, I studied what they did, and I was like, cool, I'll be able to go down to South America. Like, you know, I'll be able to have, you know, it'll be good, and I'll be able to make a lot of money. And since I'll be doing this, I won't have time to spend it. So I'll be able to save it and like start like creating the life that I want, you know, responsible life, adult life. Um, so I worked my ass off. I got into really good shape and started working out and eating right, and then studying to be able to, you know, for the ASVAPs or whatever, MEPS, whatever it's called. And we did that, did super good. And then I went to my physical, and they checked my ears, and my ears, I have swimmer's ear. It's where bone growth grows in your ear to protect your eardrum, because I've been in the water in all kinds of conditions. It's usually from cold, rainy, windy conditions. So the bone grew, and my ears are probably like 95 to 98% closed. However, I can still hear fine. Nothing bad happens. It's more so that, like, if you end up getting some type of infection or something like that, you can't allow it to breathe. So that can be bad. So I was like, when I went in there, they're like, oh my God, this is like the worst we've seen. So you need to go get this operation done where they got to cut your ear open and drill out the bone, then sew you back up. And once you go do that, then we can talk about, getting you into position and whatnot. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I was 21, 22 at that time. And I was like, I'm not going to go get this operation done. Because I know a lot of people that have done it and they've done it like 3 times. So I had to pivot again. And I was really bummed because I put in like almost a year into studying and really focusing in on this becoming my new career. You know what I mean? And it didn't happen. So I had to pivot and figure some stuff out. So at that point, I went back to my mom's house and went back to the town, that everything happened was La Jolla, and we did that. And my mom realized that I wasn't quite right in the head. And there were some things that were off, and there were some temperaments and stuff, and some anxiety, and just some different things that she was like, what's going on? Like, why are you acting like this? You know what I mean? And um, she was like, I think you need to see a therapist. I think that you need some help. Like, you're doing great. I know that, you're sober and you look great, you're healthy, but there's obviously, I think that there is some trauma that you haven't dealt with that you need to deal with, that we need to get some help with. And so with that, she helped me be able to find a therapist that focused on PTSD, as that's what she, was alluding to, that, I was dealing with from that whole experience. And so I resisted a lot. I was like, I don't need, I'm fine. I'm fine. I've been doing this. I'm fine. And she was like, no, you're not fine. So finally, after probably about like 3 to 6 months of resisting, I went, and it changed my life. It really helped me so much. We went into the whole experience and went through the entire event, as that's kind of what the process is of EMDR specific therapy, and went through it all. And she walked me through the process of basically reliving, but then taking time to see everything and creating safety within it. And so it's a very interesting experience. But we worked together for about 2 years in total. But it took about 9 months to a year to like fully make peace with that whole incident and experience, and was able to like be okay with it, and to the point that like I wasn't having night terrors anymore. I wasn't having anxiety attacks. I wasn't extremely paranoid like all the time, and so it was like, yeah, I didn't realize that that wasn't normal for me at that point in my life. But then she also started diving in. She saw and realized that I had some past traumas with my parents, and she was like, "Do you want to, work on that?" You know what I mean? And I was like, "Yeah, I do. I'm trying to be able to create better relationships." And the work that we just did, and everything that I was able to work through and understand, like, yeah, yeah, my parents frustrate me, and they can be difficult in different areas, but I do want to be able to have the capacity, for them, and have a good relationship with them. So we spent about another 6 to 9 months of unraveling everything with my parents. And I was so happy that I did, because it greatly changed our relationship to now that we have a healthy relationship. I had to learn to set up boundaries, and I had to learn to be able to communicate with them. And I also had to learn to like stand my ground with those boundaries, and understand that, I'm an adult now, and I've got to set these healthy boundaries for me to continue to be able to keep a healthy relationship with them. And yeah, and so, that was a big process of, my shift and my change into, what I do now. And then obviously I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? I was gonna go back. I was gonna go to school and get into like botany and get into horticulture and start growing. Because like I said, I loved growing. I was really, really, really good at it. And at this point, I was growing plumerias and tuberoses, and I was going to look into extracting the oils out of them and creating essential oils and different perfumes and stuff. So I was like, that could be a cool, fun thing for me to do. I'm super passionate about growing, indoor, outdoor, hydroponics, aeroponics, like all of that kind of stuff, different lights, different soils. Like I love experimenting with all of that kind of stuff. And so for me, it was a passion of mine that I could follow and make money doing it. Um, However, it didn't quite work out. And I ended up getting a job at a gym because I wanted to go to the gym and I wanted to work out and I didn't want to have to pay for it. So like if I get a job at a gym, then I can work out and do all that for free. So I did that, and then I just really started making a lot of friends at the gym and getting into the community and the culture. And I was like, wow, like maybe I should become a personal trainer and a coach. Like I've done all this with my body. I've learned how to do all this. Like why not just get the certification and start making money? I'm here all the time, but I can make, instead of, being behind the desk and, selling memberships and doing more of the administration side, or, being more of an equipment manager. I did a little bit of everything at the gym. But then I was like, no, let's start like actually being the personal trainer or the coach. And so I went to school, got my certificates and everything like that, and and yeah, became a personal trainer and a coach for Orange Theory Fitness, and and that's kind of what led me on my journey with that. And I also had my first son right around that transition time, and that's where I needed to be able to focus in on making more money than what I was doing as, assistant manager, equipment manager, and just kind of making commission off of sales in that sense. I was like, I'm having a kid. I need to make more money. I got diapers, I've got food, I've got clothes, strollers, car seats. I was looking at how much some of this stuff was, and I was like, shit. So, I was pivot. Let's try to be able to let's do this. We've been enjoying it. We actually get excited to come to the gym every day. We love the people here, the friends that we're making. They're all super positive and working on themselves. And so for me, it was like I finally found a place and a community that aligned with the lifestyle that I wanted to live, with kind of the frequency and the energy that I wanted to be in. Um, and so that was, the main pivot for me. However, though, it was focused. I'm a very extreme person where it's like push till I throw up or push till like complete failure. And for me, it's always just been go, 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 go. And so at that point, I was getting into like bodybuilding, and I'd always been very skinny growing up. And especially when I was, doing drugs, I was just skin and bones. And so that was an area of my life where I was very insecure with. I wanted to, have some muscle and, be a little bit intimidating, especially being into all the, the drugs and the street stuff and stuff like that. Intimidation was a big part of it. That way you didn't get jumped and people didn't walk all over you, and you didn't get robbed and all these different things. If you were a big person or you were a scary person, no one fucked with you. And so like, for me, that was part of, my mindset and part of my ego at that time. And so I pushed and pushed and pushed until I hurt myself. And through that process, I had to relook at things, how I was doing things. I couldn't do these things anymore. I had to have some patience and I had to heal. And I also had to reflect on like, why did this happen? How did this get to this point? And luckily it wasn't a bad injury to the point that like I'm dealing with, I was debilitated. I could still do other things, but it was more so just a wake up call of like, hey, like you've got to take, 3 to 6 months to just recover now. And you've got to maintain like a balance within how you are working out and how you're taking care of your body, because all we were doing was go, go, go. And all we were living in was fight or flight. Even though we went and we had therapy and we worked our traumas and we worked all of that stuff, we still weren't regulating and working in within the right capacity of energy for my body. I was always pushing it until empty and trying to squeeze out a little bit more. And that was draining my energy. It was draining my focus. It was taxing my body to the point that it wasn't able to do it anymore. And that's how I got injured. And then, I was also not able to be present. So there was a lot of different things that this, and I was chasing. I was chasing again. I was chasing this, the ego of being big and being strong and being this alpha male and blah, 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 blah. And the injury sat me down and allowed me to look at my ego and the place that it was coming from and why I was doing what I was doing. What was the intention behind my fitness, behind my workouts, behind the way that I was taking care of myself. And I realized that it was toxic. And even though that like all these people that I was with and everything were positive in a sense, right? We're all working out, taking care of themselves, waking up early, doing all these things, the intent and the focus on where a lot of people were why they were there was all from ego and insecurities. And I realized that that was like I was into fitness because I was a big part of it was because I was insecure. And so I had to check that. And I had to do some self work and really look at myself in the mirror and be like, what's going on? And do that self work and really focus in and change my intention on why I was working out, doing what I was doing. Because again, like, I was the way that I take care of myself is also how I'm coaching people, and that same energy of like, come on, get back to work. Oh, don't be a little bitch. You can go. You can like, you know what I mean? And that's not good. And so I was able, I took that time to be able to check myself and my approach to it. And all of this just go, 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 push, 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 like, type of energy, and realize that actually didn't really align with truly who I was. I was allowing this insecure inner child part of me steer that ship and steer my ego into pushing me into that intention. But really now where I'm at is I'm a dad now. I had my first child, and I'm a husband, and I want to be able to be capable. Me being injured right now with this hip injury that I got going on, I'm not capable to do anything with, my 3-year old. I can't do anything. I can't really run right now. Walking is kind of uncomfortable. Like this is stupid, and
Yeah.
I started hearing that like as you get older, your body starts to fall apart and age sucks, all this stuff. So that's where I really shifted my focus and my intent with my health and my fitness to focusing in on the capabilities of what is needed from me with what I have in my life and with my lifestyle. Me being able to deadlift 400 pounds. There's no why. Why? What am I? I'm not trying to lift cars. I'm not like that has no purpose in my life. You know what I mean? And me trying to just do anything extreme that I was really trying to do when it came to my fitness, again, was all ego. The thing that I look at now is that if I take my family on a hike and one of them, sprains their ankle or can't make it out, can I carry them to safety? Can I carry them back to the car? Am I capable to carry my family and get them to safety? If I need to help someone, am I capable to have the strength just to help them? Like these are capable, and I feel like, as far as my life, um, real intentional things that may happen, and I can align a good positive intention with trying to be able to make sure I have the strength to do those things, and it allows me to balance out my ego with my higher self, right? um, and with that, focused on mobility, flexibility, breath work, and just really truly understanding all of the systems within my body and understand how I can support those systems to support, my energy to be present, to support my strength and endurance to be able to carry my family through whatever I need to carry them, both physically as well as emotionally. And then, be able to do the fun stuff that I want to do. Climb a mountain, go surf big waves, or whatever it may be, but have the physical ability to do that, but make sure that it's balanced so that I'm not, getting burnt out and I'm not overdoing it to the point that I get injured or sick. And just really, understanding all those things and understanding what I'm putting in my mouth to support the things that I want to do and all of that. So yeah, that's from the knees to today.
That's beautiful, man. I really appreciate your time and allow me to learn about who you are, what has made you who you are today. It has brought you to the point of creating the intuitive health coach business. How's that going? How have things been developing for you?
You know, um, it's been one of the biggest challenges for me, and that's honestly why one of the, obviously one of the biggest parts of why I joined the university and am here, is because I've struggled with the transition. I've like I've said, I've done personal training and I've been doing coaching classes for Orange Theory for a long time now, and I've kind of just realized the energy at both places. And as I've changed the focus, the intention of myself, I'm still in the same physical places that I've been at for the entire time, and they don't quite align with me. The people that are coming in, they're great people and stuff, but don't quite align with me and the direction that I've taken, my health and fitness as well as my coaching and everything with it. So I've been in this transition period, and I've my whole thing is not, like I said, just not physique. It's the intent behind it. It's spiritually behind it. There's a lot more that goes into my health than just the physique, and I've really wanted to focus in and put that whole package together and work with individuals that are looking to take care of their themselves, and whatnot, and create the energy and the body and everything that they want, but also tying in the spirituality side to it, the mindset side to it, and being able to make sure that everything is intentional, in the right ways, and understand how to truly take care of themselves, how to take care of this vessel, not only on a muscle basis and fat basis, but also like, do you understand how your cardiovascular system works and why it is there? Do you understand your lymphatic system? Do you understand how much power your gut has? Do you understand, what your nervous system does? And truly understand, because it's important to keep a balance and a good understanding of your own internal systems so that you can actually take care of yourself. It's not just about getting a workout, and that's just one component to it. So I've wanted to make this shift into something bigger and deeper. And it really started with COVID. During COVID, obviously everything shut down, and that's when I transitioned online. I actually started thinking about, going online and branching out onto my own thing online from the physical places. And I started building my own app and my website and everything in 2019. And I launched it January 1st, 2020. And then the world shut down in March. And so I was in a great position at that point, but like I really had no clue what I was doing. Trying to run an online business and online coaching and like all of this stuff. That was like before it was even a big thing. But my dad had told me probably about a year or two before, so 2017, 2018, he was like, hey, you're doing a great job, with work and everything like that. He's like, I just want to bring something to your attention, is that fitness is great, it pays good and stuff, but if something were to happen with the economy or the world, these more luxury things of having a trainer or having a membership to this, these classes, or having a nutritionist and all these different things, these are more luxury items. And if the economy or anything takes a hit, these are usually the first things that people will drop. They'll tighten up their finances and they'll drop. So it's great that you are in person and that you got good clients and you've got a lot of classes, you're coaching, you're doing all this, you're making good money. He's like, but just kind of keep that in the back of your mind to look at possibly branching out. don't be solely dependent on these two things, because if something does happen, you know, you can be in a really tight place. And obviously, like I shared with you, my dad lost everything, between the 2006, 2008, whole deal. So he learned a lot, and my dad's an entrepreneur. He's had a lot of different businesses and different stuff like that. He's had his ups and downs, and but obviously from his experiences, and that I was at a point to, now I'm at a point where I can listen to my dad, I can be present, and I can appreciate, his wisdom from his experiences. I really took that to heart, and I was like, there's that resonates with me. What can we do? And so I started looking at online, and I was like, okay. And there were, if I wanted someone to create my own app at that time was like $100,000. And I was like, okay, that's not going to happen. And so I started researching more and found a way that I could have someone else kind of develop my own app through a shell that things were created. And anyways, I found something I could afford, start to create my own app, do that, build out my own website, get that going, and just kind of just start to build on this. And then COVID happened, and then I got influxed by so many people, because there was not very many people doing online stuff. Um, but it was kind of overwhelming, but it did good. It got me through COVID. It was able to help me pay my bills and whatnot to a certain extent. It was still hard because the gyms closed down, and everyone was scared to get together, especially here in San Diego. It was really hard time. So luckily I was able to have some money coming in to just keep us having food on the table. So, I started just continuing to build that, and got a little bit better and better and progressed. But then as soon as the gyms opened back up, it was kind of like all hands on deck. And I still really cared about the places that I was working. They were the first places that like I went back to, and like really supported me in my start. They gave me a job. They supported me in my growth there. And so like I just had this sense of loyalty to like come back and help like their, my family. And so I kind of put my own online coaching and the whole thing on pause, and went back and helped them, pretty much just help one of the owners. Just it was just me and him, running the place and getting everything going again. And I was like, I had this, knowing that like I could do online all the time, and I wouldn't have to be trading my hours for money, and I could be at home like with my family, and doing like, really creating the life that I want to create and have that freedom. So it's been a struggle of being able to fully break away from that and get into it, as I still coach at Orange Theory. But I've tailored back. I was working 6 days a week. I was working Monday through Saturday. The only day that I would take off was Sunday, for recovery and just family time and stuff like that. But since then, I've taken 2 days back, since we went back in, which was I think like 2021. And then in 2020, beginning of 2024, I took 2 days off. And so now I only coach, and I work in person, 4 days a week. And I've been trying to be able to do most of my stuff, really put in the time to build my online deal up and stuff like that. But at the same time, like I said earlier, is my coaching and my focus and my intention for health and fitness and all of that had also changed too. And it's not easy being a coach, especially a health coach. A lot of times it turns into babysitting, where I'm having to check in with people and like, why haven't you tracked your food, and why haven't you logged your workout? What are you doing? What's going on? Oh, I'm just tired, or I'm dealing with this. And it's like, I've really focused in on, what kind of client that I do want, what type of people I do want to work with, and what people are searching for the information that I'm here to provide. Um, and so it's been a lot of just fine tuning, and you know, um, I like to call like slimming down my menu and really honing into a specific focus for health and fitness, and whatnot, because it's especially when you're creating a business, every like business thing that I've taken and stuff. They're like, you need to niche down, you need to hone in on one thing. And if that's like, 40, year old dads that, full-time job that want to lose, 20 pounds, like that is your specific niche. And I'm like, but that doesn't yeah, I'm a dad too, and I want to help dads lose weight. But most of the clients that I get that were like that, they're not really the type of person that I really want to work with, or that is really even there's just a lot more babysitting and all of the stuff than actually educating and like finding the growth and helping them like really like embody and get to the person that they want to be. So I focused in on, what content am I putting out there, and really hone in and transition everything into the mindset and the level of the people that I want to work with, and that's where this whole intuitive health came into to play, from me understanding my systems and educating myself on, what the lymphatic system does, what our gut does, what the blood system, the pH of our body, the nervous system, how all these things work and operate, and how to be able to actually work with them or support them in the way so that they can function at their best. And also, most importantly, listening to them. Right. And that's where the intuitiveness comes into play, is that like there's so many different things to be able to heal yourself from this or that. But honestly, most of the time, the things that we want to heal ourselves from are actually trying to tell us something so that we can actually make a change in our response into either the pain or the anxiety or whatever we may be feeling from these things, right? Like if you're dealing with, gut issues, it's like there's things that are being said there. If you're dealing with skin issues, there's things being said there. If you're dealing with headaches, or you're dealing with anxiety, or you're dealing with, you can't sleep, there are reasons why those things are happening to us. But we have to go inward, and it's a little bit more of a spiritual dive that we have to look into, rather than going to the doctor and getting prescribed a medication for it, or going and taking this pill or this or this. You know what I mean? So that's where my focus has shifted into, is helping people understand this vessel that we're driving so that we can properly take care of it, right? Just like a car. Our souls are in this physical body. And the more we can understand how to take care of this physical body and understand how to check the levels and what all the signals are, then we can have fucking fun, and we can be happy, and we can be confident, and we can have the energy that we want, because we are running a well-oiled machine. We're getting all our oil changes, we're rotating the tires, we're checking our fluids, right? Just like you would for your car. If you want your car to go past 100,000 miles or 200,000 miles or whatever it may be, you got to take care of it. The same thing applies to our body. But so many people just want to, complain that it's old age. This is why my body's falling apart, why I'm getting sick, and all of these different things. And so my point and my goal is to kind of allow people to see and coach people to see and understand that no, that's not just life. You just don't take care of yourself. And that's okay, because no one teaches us how to take care of ourselves. But let's take the responsibility and the intent to learn how to take care of this vessel. And let me guide you on how to catch your own fish so that you don't have to be searching for people to feed you fish for the rest of your life, So that's yeah, that's my deal.
No, I agree. I'm definitely with you 100%. I think one of the first things that we need to start doing is getting tapped into our intuition. And you had mentioned, being intuitive. One of the things that you had mentioned previously was listening to your body. What does that mean to you? What does that look like for you day to day?
Well, the biggest ones that I really focus in on is my recovery, how my body is feeling as far as my energy. Am I feeling a little bit more sluggish? Am I feeling a little bit more fatigued? Do I feel like my immune system is possibly, fighting something or struggling with something? Um, so it's making sure that my vessel, as well as my nervous system, is in a good capacity. Because I know, like I said in the beginning, one of the most important things is for me to be there for my family, for me to be present. I know that if I want to be present, that my nervous system needs to be on point. I know that my immune system needs to be on point. I know that, all the systems within my body to allow me to be present need to be at the best that I can get them to be. So first off is, making sure that my nervous system is supported by what I'm putting in my body, right? That's how we're able to, build a lot of the energy that we have and that we're capable to have is from what we're putting into our body. So making sure that, my nervous system is supported with the proper real electrolytes as well as minerals that help support my nervous system, to be able to check in with my nervous system and whatnot to see what possible things am I stressing on, right? And that comes into prioritizing what I got in my day, what I've got in my week, and just all the different things that I've got on my plate, making sure that I'm present with my family, making sure that I've, got my client calls scheduled out, making sure that I've got, my content spaced out for a specific time to work on that, making sure that, I got my DMV, papers paid for, all these different things that we all deal with, going to the grocery store or the farmer's market, so I've got to be able to make sure that my nervous system has the capacity and that nothing is bringing any anxiousness or anxiety that is pushing me into that state of worry. Because if I'm focused in on any of those things, it's because I'm thinking about something in the future or something in the past, which is taking me out of that presence. And so if I can tame these areas that I know have been problematic for me and try to find solutions for myself to be able to work with those things. I can't, they're not going to go away. They're still going to be there. So how can I work with the things that make me anxious, the things that give me anxiety, some big things, some minor things, but how can I work within bringing balance and understanding for myself so that I can start to try to, not necessarily avoid, but like give myself and my mind structure that like, hey, yes, we have to do these things, but we prioritized a time to get that done. So like we don't have to worry about it right now. We can shelve that because in 2 hours we're going to work on that. Right now, we're being present with our family. Right now, we're focusing in on our breath work. Right now, we're doing these things. So, and that all comes into the nervous system and being able to work with those things. And that's also going to, balance out our cortisol, balance out our adrenaline, because those specific stress hormones for the body are triggered from stress. And stress comes from, worrying about the future, worrying about the past. But also stress comes from the food that we're putting into our body, the lack of recovery that we may be getting, obviously the electronics and stuff, and all the, there's so many different things that are putting on negative stress in our life that we don't necessarily have total control over. So I really try to, help people understand that. Don't get scared about the 5G. Don't get, start freaking out that you're got to work on a computer and, the blue screen's not very good. The blue light's not very good for us, but let's look at like being able to be aware of these things and start to add structure so that we have a little bit of control over some of these things, right? And with more practice and more understanding with these structures and how these things can be either negatively or positively affecting us, we can start to bring in a little bit more balance and a little bit more, boundaries and stuff to creating the life that we want. And so, first is, like I said, the nervous system. Because again, if my nervous system doesn't have the capacity that I want it to have, then I'm not going to be able to be present. Then next is, making sure that the uh, the lymphatic system, obviously, the lymphatic system is our sewage system for the body. So if the lymphatic system is giving us signs that it is overflowing or not, pumping right and not detoxifying right, then we're going to have congestion. We're going to possibly have skin issues. There's different signs that the body has that are directly tied to the lymphatic system. And a lot of times they're things that, people are dealing with all the time, like congestion. I have allergies, or, oh, I have a cold, I'm getting sick. No, it's just your body is giving you a forceful detox right now because you continue to consume things that are toxifying your lymphatic system, which are now over draining into your blood system, which is now not allowing you to have the energy that you have that is going to tie into your nervous system. And because all these things are trying to work overtime to be able to help get these different things out, but we continue to put these different things in, or we continue to do these same habits that are not supporting us positively for the energy and the health that we truly want. So for me, it's just making sure that I can provide balance to those things and check those things for myself. And that's where, I wake up super early in the morning. I typically wake up anywhere between about 3:30 to 4:30 in the morning, and I give myself time to check on those systems. I also work with clients really early in the morning, as I'm just more of a morning person, so I like to get right up and right to work and stuff. But I give myself focus time to focus in on my breath work, make sure I have my lemon salt water in the morning to support my nervous system and hydrate my body and promote cellular hydration, and all of these different things. I have, these different protocols for my morning routine that help support my nervous system, support my energy, and just allow me to be in a good place of safety and being okay with what I've got scheduled in the day, because I've prioritized things, right? I've organized things to the best of my abilities. Not everything is perfect, but I've got some structure and I'm good. I feel comfortable and I'm good, and I'm not worrying about things coming up or things that have happened, in the past. It doesn't happen all the time, but I've realized with different structures, different protocols, and different practices, it's made a huge difference in me having a lot more control in my life to be able to do the things that I want to do, being present, being capable, as well as having the endurance, the resilience, the longevity, all of those different things within my life. So I've, that's really where I've taken a big focus into helping others understand more of this onion of ourselves, right? More so in the health, but also within the mind, to be able to allow us to have that presence. And when you're healthy and you have energy and you're present, you're happy. And honestly, like, I really just want to help people be happy. I knew how it was for me going through those years of addiction, chasing something, never being happy, living in shame, living in regret, living in worry, self doubt, all of these different insecurities, and was continuing to try to chase something to escape or continue to push down my emotions to try to numb myself and whatnot. And once I was able to take ownership of my life and start to realize that I had the ability to change and that there was a way to be able to build this. It's taken a long time, but over a decade now of me focusing in on building that for myself and understanding how the body works and being able to help others. I've been able to help a few different of my friends that have seen me do what I do, that suffered with addiction and stuff, and be able to get out of it. One of my clients that I trained this morning, he's one of my tattoo artists too. He's suffered with addiction for a long time, and he got himself into AA, and he's been doing that. But he's like, dude, honestly, coming down and starting my day with a workout with you in the morning and talking with you and doing all this and like all this positive stuff and changing my health. He's like, dude, like this has been like the number one thing for me, because even though, like, yeah, going to AA and going through these steps and finding a good process that works for you on finding that strength to work through those addictions, it all still only does so much. You're still going to have the anxiety, you're still going to have the fatigue, the lack of energy, because most of them, they don't know how to eat or how to move the energy or the emotions or the feelings that they're still having, even though they found a community that supports them into staying sober, even though they're not addressing the things that most likely got them, into their drug addictions or their alcohol addictions or whatever it may be in the first place. And by being able to understand how to support their body, right? Like, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist in the sense of that. And I do support them on, I told them, share my story of, I went through 2 years of very specific, therapy for my mental health that allowed me to be okay with what's happened in my life and be able to support myself positively, but be able to grow from it, be able to learn from these things that happened, and understand that everything is okay, and be able to now start to work on improving my health and my body, and be able to actually grow and move forward in the way that I want. But when we're putting in a bunch of bad food that's causing inflammation and gut issues, like a lot of our anxiety and stuff is stemmed from the gut. And that's where a big thing is that, I've seen a lot of people get sober and do all these things, but they still have all these issues, and they're still not happy. Even though they got off of drugs, or they got off of, being an alcoholic, they're still not happy. They still don't have the energy and all this. And once they start to actually take care of their body and respect their body, that's when, like, big things start to change for them. And so, I've had three of my friends be able to come to me and want to work with me and actually pay me, you know what I mean, for my time and for the education and the work that I work with them. Um, and for me to be able to truly see the change in their life and to hear their words, and that, like, my experience wasn't just me, like they're going through the same experience, differently than I was, but understanding how to take care of their body has made such a positive impact on their growth and on their journey to really living the life that they want to live. How much of an impact has made on them through what I've been able to teach them and help them through. This was like, wow, like this, I really feel the greatest sense of purpose and everything, like with this. And so, that's kind of now also pivoted me into this new thing that I really want to focus in on, which is regulation after addiction. And it's really just everything that I kind of said, is understanding how to work with your body, how to take care of your body, how to respect your body by taking care of it, after you got through, you broke your addictions of, drugs or alcohol or whatever it may be. But I really want to be able to provide a um, a workshop or a program more so for rehabs or sober living houses and stuff like that, because as talking to my friends that are going through rehabs, and talking to other of my friends that have gone through rehabs and sober living places, and I kind of tell them what I've done, because they see me online and they're like, dude, like, what do you do, like, what are your workouts and blah blah blah. And I'll tell them, and they're like, like, I'm like, is there anything that's like this? Like, that, like, you guys are able to have access to, or, some of them went to really nice, rehabilitation centers where they did have, like, personal trainers, and they have different classes and things for them to do. But, like, they're like, no one ever educates or understands or, like, teaches, like, how to really respect your body and understand how this body works in your nervous system and the fucking lymphatic system. Like, I never even knew that, like, I have so much congestion, I deal with this, and it's annoying. And so it's like, I wanted to be able to go to a specific space and create something within that space that can provide them with some utility and a foundation to really love and respect themselves and take care of themselves.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. You are being the change you want to see in this world, and I can honor that. I know I don't have you for much longer, but I'll leave you with one last question. For someone that's listening right now who feels completely disconnected from themselves, through their mind, body, or soul, where would you direct them to start?
You know, um, I would direct them to start with reflecting. If they're feeling the disconnection to themselves, start by reflecting. One way that really has helped me be able to reflect is by writing things down. You're able to, all the things that you don't possibly like in your life, the things that you may be struggling with, the things of the past or the future that you may be worried about, all of those things, write them down. The list can be long, and that can be overwhelming as well, but it's going to give you an opportunity to zoom out, and it's going to allow you to prioritize what is the most important thing. And if that's you getting yourself help, then start with that. If you're dealing with an addiction that doesn't serve you, and you know that the relationship with it is bad and it's only bringing you harm, then that's what I would suggest starting with first. If you're dealing with, mental health issues and, you have major anxiety or depression or PTSD or any of those things, and you haven't sought a therapist that specializes in that or anything like that, I would suggest starting with that. But if you're someone that's like, I don't have any drug issues and I, don't really feel like I have any serious mental health issues, but I do know that I'm not taking care of my body and I do know that I'm not really present and I do know that I'm kind of just living this comfortable lifestyle, but it's not making me happy, then start to really look at the shifts and start to see the work and try to find a solution to the things that you may have written on that list. And now start to see where you can possibly take action. If it's something that, you're a little bit more sedentary and you know that you need to be moving more and it's affecting your health, then start looking at prioritizing, some walks, something simple that is doable. If you know that you need to, change your food and stuff like that, or, your what you consume. I don't like to use the word diet, but, start to, have some fruit and some whole foods, some real foods, and maybe start to learn how to cook. Look at the doable areas, because a lot of times people, they'll want to go all in, and especially within the fitness, thing is, especially when someone wants to lose weight, is people want to go all in to, I want to lose 20 pounds in like 2 weeks. Well, that's not going to happen. We have to be realistic with the work that we have to put in. Um, and I know that that can be overwhelming for a lot. I've dealt with a lot of people that was really overwhelming with, because they just put so much pressure on trying to get this done. But again, when we zoom out and we acknowledge the fact that we are being present with ourselves and we're working through seeing ourselves and what it is that we truly need to change in our life by writing it down, we're taking that first initial set of accountability. And so I always tell everyone, like, do that work, but be proud of yourself that you're doing this work. I know that we can get these feelings of anxiety or depression or lack of self-worth and insecurities when we start to talk about the things that we don't like about ourselves, right? The things that we want to work on. But the fact that you're taking that step and you're building this awareness is one of the best things that you can do. And that is something that you should, when you're done with it, congratulate yourself with, feel good with, because that's the hardest thing to do. That's why most people don't ever change, because they can't get to that first step. And, with health and with fitness and with just coaching in general, no one is going to change your life for you. Really, all we are guides to be able to suggest things, to be able for you to try to see that works for you. We are all individual, unique individuals, right? There's not a one size fits all for anyone. So it's really an experiment with yourself of finding out what it is that you truly want more in your life, what it is you truly want to change. Is it a physical, mental, or spiritual level that you're working on deepening and having a better understanding of and growing with? And it's about you prioritizing what is the most important for you right now and that's doable for you right now. And be patient with yourself. Give yourself grace is the most important thing, is giving yourself that grace and acknowledging the things and the steps that you're taking and moving forward with, creating the life that you truly want and that aligns with you and that gives you the sense of purpose, in the present moment. And yeah, I hope that answered your question.
No, it definitely did. I agree. You had to start journaling, if not physically writing, just verbalize it, just to kind of start where you need to start, which is discovering, what you have going on, discovering yourself. Well, with that, Christian, I don't even think we scratched the surface, my man. We really didn't. But we're gonna go ahead and continue on, and I hope to have another episode with you just to kind of continue on our progress together. And I really want to thank you for your time that you've allowed me today to get to know you.
Absolutely, brother. No, I'm just extremely grateful. This is, with the university we're in and everything, being able to connect with other like-minded individuals that, align and with my same outlook on this reality, and just looking for that growth and continuing to, move forward has been something that's really, really been on my heart, of being able to find, this new group of people that I've evolved into and that align with, and to be able to get on and have these discussions. I've wanted to get on and have podcast discussions now for about the last 3 years, and I've done two. One we had technical difficulties on, and then we didn't link back up and redo it. The other one was good, but some of the intentions didn't quite align. And so for me, this is not only a goal that I've had, but just something that I've really wanted to, like from my heart, bro. That, like, I've just wanted to be able to come on and just have a great conversation, and yeah, share my story and be able to talk about what I do, but just connect with another, being here in this reality that aligns with me, and that we're both on, the same focus of growth and everything like that. So I'm just super grateful, man. I really am. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm super grateful to meet a new friend and a new being in this reality, that we can grow together and talk together, and hopefully, inspire others together as well. So thank you,
No,
brother.
definitely so. No, it's my honor, man. It's my honor, my pleasure. And yeah, we'll leave it there, my man. But either way, we'll touch base soon enough, my man. Thank you for your time once again.
Absolutely.
Cool,
Absolutely.
man. Have
Thank
a
you.
great day. Later.
You too. Take care.